Shalise, I just wanted to ask you to introduce yourself and tell me what you do.
My name is Shalise Harrison, and I work for the Wyoming Wilderness Association as a BLM Wildlands community organizer. And I run a campaign in the Red Desert of Wyoming, which is southwest Wyoming. And I work to make sure conservation measures are put into the management plan because the landscape is under management revision. And our organization as a whole works to protect Wyoming wildlands. We first begun as a group of wilderness advocates that helped pass the 1984 Wilderness Act. And since then, we've recreated, or I guess banned again in the 90s to protect more land that was under threat due to a number of reasons, and we're still here today doing the same thing.
So when we say wilderness, I mean, what's the definition of that? Is there a definition of some sort?
There is. The Wilderness Act defines wilderness as a place that is 5,000 acres or more, natural, which means there can't be a lot of human disturbances there, like a power line even. It has to have opportunities for unconfined, primitive forms of recreation and solitude. And there's often other additive features like geology or cool archaeological sites or facts. So basically a big chunk of land that doesn't have human influence. And the idea of the Wilderness Act is to protect these places so you can, one, find solitude, be alone, and walk in humbly, leave humbly, and as a result of that, it also protects large swaths of land for ecosystem connectivity and health and biodiversity.
Is it also for scientific reasons, or like people to study the?
It certainly can be. One thing that's unique about wilderness is that because natural processes are allowed to play their course, you can compare that to places where people spray for weeds or have logging, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So, I know there's a lot of federal land in Wyoming. Is there any issue with, are you doing this on the federal part or any area in Wyoming?
Good question. Most of the lands that we advocate for are federal lands, either belonging to the United States Forest Service or under jurisdiction of the Forest Service or the Bureau of Land Management.
Okay. And so do people, what are really the dangers? I mean, why do you need to do this, or why is it necessary?
Well, first of all, land that hasn't been developed is rare. And it doesn't, if a piece of land is natural and has all the qualities that make it wilderness and yet doesn't have the protections of wilderness, it's not going to stay like that. And it's really important that folks really advocate for really saving these last chunks of land that are left as we have expanding markets and commodification of the landscape in all different levels everywhere. It's not going to get any easier, and wilderness isn't something that grows. It's continually shrinking.
Right.
Yeah.
It only goes one direction.
Yeah, and there's projects all the time that influence wildlands. If we call them wildlands if it's not designated wilderness. For example, I just commented on a natural gas project near Boulder, Wyoming, which is going to destroy 60,000 acres of wildlands at the expense of thousands of natural gas wells that are going to be tightly packed into this area that is crucial for sage grouse and moose and elk and deer and all the rest.
So I know you have your offices here or one of your offices here at the Civic Center, but can you give me an idea of where your offices are, how it works, and I know you have a new executive director. What's the hierarchy?
So our headquarters are in Sheridan, and that's where we have our executive director, our office organizer, and a marketing director, and people who help us apply for grants to continue to go,
Sure.
to keep going and doing our work. And we do a lot of events there, and one of our priority areas is Rock Creek, which is in the Bighorns, which is near Sheridan. So we do organizing in that region of Wyoming. We also have an office in Jackson where there's an organizer that is tackling issues in the Teton landscape, and my office, which is in Laramie, and I basically cover the southern end of the state, covering BLM lands. And we used to have an office in Du Bois, but that's recently closed to sort of consolidate work in other places that is needed.
Okay, so what do you do in this office here, and where are you normally? Are you normal when you're doing your job?
It depends on the time of year. In the summertime, I'm leading a lot of public outings to the places that I'm advocating protections for. I do inventory work, a lot of meetings. So in the summertime, I'm anywhere from Cheyenne to Rock Springs to the desert to even Cody at certain times for meetings. Otherwise, if I'm here, I'm planning those meetings and those organizational sort of activities, maybe in a public event. For example, there's a public lands rally this weekend in Laramie that I'll be speaking and tabling at. And I do a lot of writing from my office. So if I'm not in my office, I'm probably traveling or in meetings elsewhere.
Okay, so you mentioned events. What other kinds of events do you do, the organization?
Well, we had an event here this year. It was called the Backcountry Film Festival, and that is it's a series of winter films about quiet recreation in winter, like cross-country skiing or downhill skiing. And I got a lot of raffle items that were given to us, donated by the community. And over 100 people showed up, and they watched the films, and it gave me a chance to get a good group of people in the same room to sort of educate them about what's going on and to sort of help me do my work. For example, there's oftentimes petitions and things that they can sign, calls to action from our legislatures or community leaders to do a certain thing that's good for public lands.
So who shot those films?
A number of different artists. And
local people, in other words.
Not local people from Wyoming. In this particular series, there was a film that was made in China and one in Mongolia and elsewhere. So it just kind of depends. And Winter Wildlands Alliance, which is another organization, they go out and ask for those films to be made, and then they put it together.
I see. Because when you go to your website and you see the photographs, it's a real good selling point. You see just a vast variety of what's here in Wyoming. It's shocking almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful places, and it's one of the reasons why Wyoming is so special.
And so I really want to ask, is it a real big fight? Is this a hard thing to get people on board for?
People are on board. I think a lot of people agree with the things that we're asking to do. But it is a hard fight in the fact that the things that we ask for are not easily accomplished. And you're competing against capitalism.
Right, is it industry, is that it?
Industry and our way of life and our economic system really works against environmentalism.
Is there like a meeting ground on some of these things? Because you said there has to be a certain amount of acreage, so it's not like you could say, okay, let's have that. You have to have, it's all or nothing.
Yeah, well, for passing wilderness, it's really, really difficult because you have to pass it through the United States Congress as a law.
I see.
But there's a lot of other ways to make gains in conservation. For example, I can ensure in a management plan that development doesn't occur in a certain area and there's no new roads.
Okay.
And I can work with the county commissioners, and I can have the public, echo what I'm echoing, so there's a lot more voices, and that tends to help quite a bit.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to ask you is, I know that you have members. There are ways that people can donate or join your group. How do they reach you?
Go to our website, go to Facebook, go to wildwyo.org, and you can click on any number of the links, and we are make it really easy to funnel you to give us your money. So
sure.
That's one way you can do it. You can also sign up for any of our free public outings, and I'll provide you information then. And there's also events that we host throughout the year in various different communities that you can attend.
Okay. All right, Shilise, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks.